an outrageous story for you. But before I continue, please like and subscribe. I was raised by my grandmother when I was 3, and she was a famous actress who starred in a dozen action movies. On a typical day, she'd jump off a building, fight a bunch of ninjas on top of a speeding train, and one time, she fought 10 bad guys in midair with her bare hands and a rubber ducky. You want a piece of me, punk? Grandma was the coolest person in the world, and I wanted to be just like her. She loved teaching me martial arts moves, and on my 14th birthday, she let me go to one of her movie sets. I watched as Grandma rode a motorcycle through a window and into a pillow factory, but something went horribly wrong. There was water on the floor, and Grandma's motorcycle spun out of control. Then she fell and hit her head. My heart raced. I ran onto the set and pushed past the crew to get to her. Wake up, Grandma, please! Moments later, Grandma opened her eyes, but what happened next rocked my world. Grandma didn't remember who she was. She was convinced she was a double agent from one of her action movies. She was so paranoid, she punched the doctor in the face when he tried to examine her and chased me around the room with a broom. It's me, Tiffany, your granddaughter, remember? You won't take me alive. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, a social worker came to visit. She said that Grandma wasn't fit to raise me anymore, so I'd have to go live in an orphanage. I cried and begged the social worker to let me stay with Grandma, but she refused to listen. When I got to the orphanage, all the other kids were half my age. I always wanted a younger sibling, so it wasn't that bad at first. Tiffany, help little Michael with his homework. Tiffany, come play dolls with me? Then it got really old. Tiffany, change baby Jake's diapers and wipe Sammy's nose. The twins made a mess. Go clean it up. Every night I dreamed of getting adopted, but none of the parents were interested in me. So I gave up my hopes of ever having a real family. But one day, the craziest thing happened. The nuns took me and the rest of the orphans to the park. As usual, I was responsible for watching the kids as the nuns hung out sipping lattes. Then I saw a strange man lurking around the playground, and my spidey sense went haywire. The man grabbed little Sammy and darted down the street. I chased the strange man, yelled at him to stop, and threw a handful of sand in his face when the nuns tackled him and held him down until the police arrived. The police said that the strange man was wanted around the country for a dozen crimes. After that, my picture was in the paper, and everyone started calling me a hero. The next thing I knew, this rich couple named Mr. and Mrs. Wilson came to visit, and they gave me an offer I couldn't refuse.
We'd like to adopt you, but on one condition.
What is it? They showed me a picture of their daughter, a girl my age named Pearl.
Our daughter Pearl needs a sister to keep her company and to be a good influence.
They told me how Pearl was always getting into trouble and how she hung out with the wrong kids. In exchange for my services, the Wilsons promised they'd pay for my education. I'd get my own room in their mansion, and I'd get a weekly allowance. Cha-ching!
So, are you interested?
It was a total no-brainer. Duh, of course I'm in. When do I start? We shook on the deal, then I was off with the Wilsons on a private jet. When we arrived at their mansion, Pearl greeted us at the front door.
Pearl, this is your new sister, Tiffany.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. Don't touch me, you witch. Pearl shoved me and slammed the door in our faces.
Don't worry, she just needs some time to get used to the idea.
Everything will be fine, we promise. But instead, things got worse. Pearl gave me dirty looks every time she saw me. She put spiders in my bed, sprayed me in the face with a water hose, and left weird photos of me with my face crossed out all around the house. She even locked herself in her room and refused to eat. It's me or the charity case. Pearl's hunger strike didn't last long. Less than 10 minutes later, we caught a delivery guy falling out of a tree after attempting to deliver a pizza through Pearl's bedroom window. At school, Pearl acted like I was invisible. She hung out with these mean girls that smiled in her face and talked about her behind her back. I overheard them making fun of Pearl in the bathroom. Pearl is so stupid and annoying. I can hardly stand her. But look at these new shoes she bought me. That night, I tried to warn Pearl about the girls. You don't know anything about my life. You're just a stupid, poor, motherless girl. I know what it's like to be used. Those girls aren't your friends. Friends don't hang out with you just because you have money. But Pearl didn't listen. She started taking her friends on shopping sprees every day to make herself feel better. She maxed out her credit cards, and Mr. Wilson found out and took all Pearl's credit cards away. But when Pearl told her friends she couldn't take them shopping anymore, they kicked her out of their group. They ignored her at school and stopped answering her texts. They even had a big party and didn't invite Pearl. I caught Pearl sitting in her room, crying in the dark. My life is over. Just finish me off. I'm doomed. Pearl threw herself on the floor and clutched her wallet like she was dying. Don't be so dramatic. You don't need money to have fun. Liar! How dare you speak such nonsense? I bet you'll have twice as much fun with me than you ever had with your snobby old rich friends. I'll take that bet, and if I win, you have to do my homework for a month. It's a deal. Pearl and I went skating at the park, We played volleyball on the beach, swam in the ocean, and made TikTok videos of ourselves dancing on the pier. Pearl had the time of her life. On the way home, she even opened up to me. Thanks for being nice to me today. You didn't have to do this. I know my parents brought you here to replace me. If I were them, I'd probably trade me in for an upgrade too. That's not true. Yes, it is. You're super smart and a real-life hero, but I've always been a disappointment. I'm not your replacement. Your parents love you with all their heart. They adopted me so you could have a sister. They just wanted to make you happy, and I'm glad they did because I think we could be good friends. After that, Pearl ditched her stupid, snobby rich friends and started hanging out with me. The more I got to know Pearl, the more I realized that we had a lot in common. We loved watching MSA videos, dancing to K-pop music, and we totally loved rom-coms. I even took Pearl with me to visit Grandma. Most of the time, Grandma interrogated me about some secret package I knew nothing about. And when she didn't get the answer she wanted, she put me in a headlock and yelled at the doctor to take me back to my cell, but I could tell by the look in Grandma's eyes that she still loved me. Soon, Pearl and I were best friends. We were in all the same classes and joined the same clubs. We were together all the time until Dean came along. Dean was a bad boy. He wore sunglasses indoors, had a dozen tattoos, and was always in detention. I'm not exaggerating. He was there like every day. Pearl fell head over heels for Dean. Every time she saw him, she'd try to get his attention. She sat next to him in class, left love notes in his locker, and she even gave him a sculpture of the two of them kissing. But Dean just ignored her. Pearl got so desperate to spend time with Dean that she yelled at a teacher and threw an egg on the principal's car just so she could get 2 weeks of detention. Surprisingly, Pearl's plan worked. A couple of days later, Pearl swore they were in love. One time, Pearl and I were in the library working on a research paper when Dean walked up, sat next to Pearl, and they started making out right in front of me. Jeez, can you two get a room? They ignored me and kept kissing. I was so annoyed that I grabbed my stuff and stormed off. I quickly turned a corner and ran smack into a boy named Jack. We both lost our balance and fell to the floor. Oops, I'm so sorry. I'm such a klutz. No, it was my fault. I wasn't watching where I was going. Jack took my hand. I looked into his eyes, and then the sparks flew. He smelled like heaven, and when he smiled, my heart melted. Jack wasn't the most popular kid around. Actually, he was a bit of a nerd. One time, he laughed and milk flew out of his nose, but I didn't care. He was funny, kind, and sweet. Tiffany, I've been thinking that you might be my soulmate. With you at my side, I feel like I can do anything. Like what? Like climb a tall building, lift 1,000 pounds, and maybe fall in love. Oh yeah, he's also totally romantic. Jack and I started going on double dates every night with Pearl and Dean. Things were going well until Mr. and Mrs. Wilson took a new...
The most important step to any get ready with me is oral hygiene.
New case against a CEO of a huge company that had ties to a dangerous criminal enterprise. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson had to leave town for a few weeks to prepare for the trial, so Pearl and I had the mansion to ourselves. At first, it was pretty fun staying up late and inviting Jack and Dean over to play video games. Then things took a horrible turn. A couple of days after the announcement of the trial, Pearl, Dean, Jack, and I were walking home from school. Pearl stepped into the street, and this car appeared out of nowhere and headed straight toward her. Watch out! I grabbed Pearl and yanked her out of the street, and the car raced away. Later that day, someone left a package in Pearl's locker. Ooh, look, someone got me a present. Pearl opened it and found 3 dead fish inside and a threatening note that said, "Tell your parents to drop the case or else." I started to get worried. Pearl was my sister. It was my job to look out for her, but things were getting out of hand. I felt like I was in over my head, so I decided to go visit Grandma. Grandma, call me G. What do you need? I need to learn how to eliminate a threat. I told Grandma about my duty to protect Pearl and the danger she was in. Don't wait for the threat to find you. Set a trap and lure it out. That way, you'll be prepared. I thanked Grandma, said goodbye, and then I put my plan into action. First, I called the Wilsons, but they didn't answer their phones, so I left a message with their assistant. Then I talked to Pearl. We need to tell your parents about these threats. It's nothing. They're just stupid pranks. Are you kidding? This is serious. My parents don't have to know. We can handle it. Dean will protect me.
Yeah, Pearl's my girl. I won't let anyone hurt her. No one will ever get past me.
Dean started flexing his muscles, and Pearl just couldn't get enough. Then she and Dean hopped into her car and went to a nightclub like they didn't have a care in the world. I tagged along to keep Pearl safe, but it didn't help that everywhere I looked, I saw something suspicious. Like the bouncer that kept glaring at Pearl, the car that looked like it was following us, or the girl with the pink hair and the razor-sharp nails that appeared out of nowhere with a smirk on her face. I got more anxious by the minute. I wasn't sure Grandma's advice would work. There were way too many threats. There was no way I could protect Pearl Pearl from the mall. I needed backup, so I texted Jack and he came to the rescue.
What are you doing here? I thought you didn't like nightclubs.
I'd rather be at home, but Pearl's in danger and I have to keep her safe. I told Jack about the deal I made with the Wilson and how I suspected someone was after Pearl. Then Jack came up with an amazing idea.
My parents have a cabin a few miles outside of town. We can hide Pearl there until her parents come back. The place is pretty secure, with cameras and plenty of food.
That's a great idea. Jack and I convinced Dean and Pearl to come out to the cabin. Surprisingly, they agreed. The cabin was pretty isolated, but with all the cameras around, it felt safe. Dean and Pearl thought it was a romantic vacation, but Jack and I were on full alert. Then Dean made us all an amazing cup of hot chocolate with whipped cream and sprinkles. I must have dozed off because I woke up to the strangest thing. I was tied to a chair, and so were Jack and Pearl. Dean was staring at us with a sinister grin. Dean, what are you doing?
Isn't it obvious? You're tied to a chair in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. You're my hostages, duh.
But why, Sugar Bear?
Shut up, Pearl. I'm not your sugar bear. I can hardly stand you. Mr. Stencil's my uncle.
Who's Mr. Stencil?
You really are dumber than you look. Mr. Stencil's the man that your stupid parents are trying to send to jail. He paid me to get close to you, steal files from your house, and kidnap you to force your parents to drop the charges. I think I'll ask your parents for $1 million too. Pretending to be your boyfriend was torture.
Pearl started to cry, and I got really mad. Don't you talk to my sister like that.
And what are you gonna do about it, loser?
Oh, I've already done it. You might as well give up because you've lost.
What are you talking about?
Come closer and I'll show you. Dean stepped closer, then I headbutted him in the face.
My nose!
I used the Swiss Army knife I'd hidden in my back pocket to slice through the ropes, then I raced to my cell phone and called the police.
You can't stop me, orphan girl.
Then Dean lunged at me. He wrestled me to the ground. I thought I was a goner. He was 10 times stronger than me. Then I remembered Grandma and everything she taught me. For Grandma! I kneed Dean in the stomach, poked him in the eye, and kicked him in the nose. He staggered back, grabbed a coffee mug, and hurled it at me. I caught it in the air and smashed it across his head. Then Dean fell down in a daze. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson and a dozen police officers showed up and hauled Dean off to jail. Pearl cried for days from a broken heart. Jack and I stayed by Pearl's side to help her recover. After eating several tubs of ice cream and watching a ton of MSA videos, she vowed to stop chasing bad boys. After all of the excitement, Jack started acting really weird. He kept staring at me like I had 3 heads. Why are you looking at me like that? Do I have something in my teeth?
No, it's just that I think you're amazing. How did you learn those moves? You looked like an action star.
Well, I guess you could say I had a great teacher.
Really?
I showed Jack one of my grandma's old movie posters, and he lost his mind.
Whoa, that's Grandma G. I love her.
You love her, huh? You're making me jealous. Jack blushed, then pulled me close.
Don't worry, Tiff. You're my hero, and my heart belongs to you.